Cambodia is a small Southeast Asian country with a tumultuous past. However, considering that, they actually have some rather nice football grounds. So with that being said, here are the Cambodian Premier League stadiums. Hanuman Stadium. This club is known as Angkor Tiger, in reference to Angkor Wat, the country's most famous landmark. So famous they put it on the flag. It's around 6 kilometers away from the stadium, in case you're wondering. Anyway, the club's ground is not quite as grandiose as that ancient temple complex. I mean, it is the largest religious structure in the world, not many things are. The stadium has certainly been kept in better condition though, and it's significantly better at hosting football, so that's a plus. Olympic Stadium. Like most football grounds known as Olympic Stadium, this stadium has not hosted the Olympics. It was, however, built to host the 1963 Southeast Asian Peninsula Games. But they were cancelled due to political turmoil, as civil war broke out just a few years later, after which the Khmer Rouge came into power, which resulted in the deaths of nearly a quarter of the country's population in just a few years. Grim. Back to the stadium. The design consists of a big C-shaped stand that's built into large mounds of earth, as well as a separate main stand which is built into an arena. Despite a recent renovation that installed new seats throughout the stadium, I'm not sure this place has got much of a future, now that Morodok Techo National Stadium has been built. Actually, none of the clubs play here, but let's just talk about it anyway. The unique design is supposed to resemble a Chinese sailing ship. Yes, Chinese, as it was funded by them. Many national stadiums in developing countries are. I'm sure there were no strings attached. Anyway, this was built to host the 2023 Southeast Asian Games, that were not cancelled. Much like the aforementioned Angkor Wat, the stadium is completely surrounded by a moat. Good thing it's a boat. Oh, one thing that the previous stadium definitely has over this is the location. This is so far out of town that it's actually a different province. Staying in PP, we have AIA Stadium KMH Park. That was too many initialisms in one sentence. The stadium, which is situated right in the heart of the city's industrial district, was opened last year, just in time for the club's promotion to the Premier League for the first time. The seating throughout the stadium perfectly matches the many blue roofs of the surrounding buildings. Whether that's intentional or not, it's looking good. Come to think of it, why are there so many blue-roofed factories in Asia? If you look at a Western industrial complex, the roofs are mostly white. Any Cambodian factory architects watching this video, let me know in the comments. Kiravong Soksen Stadium. We've gone from a built-up metropolis to a more regional setting, where the air is fresh and the mosquitoes are plentiful. It's a small town and the stadium certainly reflects that. There is just one stand. However, to be fair, all of the seats are elevated and undercover, and the ground was recently renovated, so it's in fairly good condition. Kampong Speu Stadium. This is basically a combination of the last two stadiums in that it was opened in 2022 and has just the one grandstand. A rather interesting looking grandstand. I like that contrast of beige down below and the blue roof above. I was just thinking though that something doesn't look right. It's the windows of those press boxes or luxury suites. They don't look bad or anything, they're just especially large floor-to-ceiling windows. Smart RSN Stadium. In case you were wondering, Smart is just the name of the sponsor. It's not like a smart house where you can turn the lights on with a clap. If that were the case here, there would be a dramatic surge in epileptic seizures in the area. Speaking of names, the club that plays here are called Phnom Penh Crown. And they were actually crowned champions last season. Very fitting. Or perhaps it's like the yellow jersey at the Tour de France. Maybe the crown name gets passed around to the reigning champs every year. No. Svay Rieng Stadium is a pretty impressive ground for such a small town, but one thing I find odd about it, considering it's a fairly new stadium, is Rather than the main stand being close to the field, there's a strip of gravel in the way, and it starts just a few meters from the pitch, which might make players a little apprehensive when attempting a sliding tackle near that boundary. I suppose it is better than there being a pit of molten lava there, but very few stadiums implement that nowadays. Preng Stadium is probably the most rudimentary stadium in the league. I mean, the stands themselves are made of nothing but bare concrete, apart from 100 or so seats. However, due to the sheer amount of advertising hoarding throughout the ground, and the fact that it's overlooked by this extravagant spire of the nearby courthouse, it doesn't look as dull as it otherwise would have. RCAF Old Stadium. As the name alludes to, this is the oldest stadium in the league. It's nearly 100, or over 100, I don't know for sure. You'd have to ask the French, as this was built when Cambodia was a French protectorate. Speaking of spires, these two big boys form an actual part of the stadium. Given that Tiffy Army, the team that plays here, represents Cambodia's Ministry of National Defense, perhaps they are watchtowers. Tiffy, by the way, is a pharmaceutical company, so that's kind of like if the Army Black Knights became the GlaxoSmithKline Army. Anyway, this is an interesting ground. I particularly like how it's completely surrounded by buildings that appear as if they also form a part of the stadium. Preng Stadium. I tried to find out why this was called Preng Stadium. Was it named after a Cambodian prince? Is the owner of the club a fan of the artist formerly known as Prince? It took me way too long to find out that it is simply just sponsored by a bank called Prince Bank. Interestingly, the ground was built specifically for Visaka FC, who wear blue and yellow. Yet one stand is made up of red seats. I'm gonna assume that's for the away fans. Red equals bad, I guess. Anyway, this might be the most advanced football-specific stadium in the league. And those were the stadiums of the Cambodian Premier League. My favourite of the lot would have to be, you know what, whilst it might be technologically inferior, the old stadium has plenty of character. I'll go for that. Please consider subscribing if you're new around here, and as always, thanks for watching, have a good one.